Have you ever wondered why some animated films from the 1960s and 1970s vanished almost as soon as they appeared? These were not friendly cartoons with cheerful tunes. These were daring experiments that made review boards nervous and pushed imagination far beyond the safe zone. Some sparked complaints, some quietly disappeared, and a few found new life through late-night screenings. Today, we uncover 14 animated films that went further than anyone expected. Number 13. Watership Down, 1978. Watership Down arrived looking like a gentle animated story about rabbits living in the countryside. Many parents expected a calm tale with soft music and friendly animals. What they got instead was a dramatic adventure filled with tense moments, brave escapes, and scenes that felt more intense than the usual weekend cartoon. Even though the story focused on courage and survival, it delivered these ideas with strong emotional weight. When the film opened, some theaters received complaints from parents who felt the tone was too serious for younger children. A few local broadcasters later chose not to re-air the movie during daytime hours. Some countries added age suggestions or trimmed moments that they believed might be too heavy for sensitive viewers. It was not a full ban everywhere, but the limits placed on it made the film part of animation history. Despite this reaction, many viewers admired the film for the same reasons others avoided it. Its honesty about fear and hope gave the story a depth rarely seen in animated films of that time. The hand-drawn style made the countryside feel alive, while the characters showed real emotion through their struggles. Number 12. Fantastic Planet, 1973. Fantastic Planet did not just tell a story. It created a completely new world. Released in 1973, the film used hand-drawn art that felt more like moving paintings than a standard cartoon. It followed the journey of tiny humans trying to survive on a planet ruled by tall blue beings. The idea was simple, but the presentation was nothing like what audiences expected. The slow pacing, the eerie music, and the dreamlike creatures made viewers feel like they had stepped into a strange book rather than an animated film. In several countries, board members wondered if children would be disturbed by the imagery. Some screenings were limited, others trimmed scenes, and a few regions placed age suggestions that kept younger viewers away. Even television broadcasts hesitated, often choosing not to air it at all. But the film gained attention from critics and students who loved animation as art. Many praised it for using imagination in a way that felt almost philosophical. It did not rely on comedy or action. Instead, it focused on atmosphere, tone, and big ideas. This made it stand out in a decade filled with bright, cheerful cartoons. Number 11. Yellow Submarine, 1968. Yellow Submarine looked like a bright pop adventure made for a cheerful weekend. Instead, audiences walked into a dreamlike journey filled with ideas that felt wild for its time. The film was created with bold colors, surreal characters, and non-stop visual surprises. On the surface, it was a simple story about teamwork and imagination. But underneath, it carried hints of messages that older viewers read as challenges to the rules of society. Some communities did not know how to respond. A few regions quietly pulled screenings, arguing that its colorful world might confuse younger viewers. Others felt the imagery encouraged too much free thinking at a time when many preferred simple stories that stayed inside the lines. For a family outing, the film was seen as unusual, and for strict areas, it felt a little too free. Yet the film had supporters. Young adults embraced it as a bold artistic leap, and art schools treated it as proof that animation could be expressive without following the usual patterns. The music, the visuals, and the playful tone turned it into a favorite among those who loved creativity that felt bigger than the frame. Number 10. Allegro nontropo, 1976. Allegro nontropo entered theaters with a mischievous spark. It was a collection of animated pieces set to classical music, but instead of calm and elegant scenes, it delivered bold drawings, surprising humor, and unexpected twists. Many viewers instantly compared it to Fantasia, yet this film played by its own rules. The animation was imaginative, sometimes funny, sometimes emotional, and sometimes strange enough to make traditional audiences blink twice. Some sequences carried a tone that people in the 1970s found daring. A few broadcasters quietly removed parts before airing it on television, while some theaters chose shorter versions. The concern was not about danger. It was about the sharp humor and unusual storytelling. Certain scenes commented on society in a way that felt too direct for the time. However, the film also impressed viewers who loved creativity without a safety rail. Animators praised the inventive art styles, switching from soft pencil lines to bold ink strokes. Students admired how each piece told a different story while still feeling connected through music and spirit. The film gained a steady following in art schools and independent theaters, where it was celebrated for its bravery and playfulness. Number 9. Fritz the Cat, 1972. Fritz the Cat was never meant to blend in. Released in 1972, it burst into theaters with a style that pushed far beyond the typical animated film. Instead of focusing on cheerful adventures, it explored life in a busy city through bold characters and sharp humor. Everything about it was different, from the rough drawing style to the unpredictable storytelling. It was created for adults, not children, and that alone set it apart. When review boards screened the IA film, reactions varied wildly. Some praised its honesty and bold tone. Others felt it pushed boundaries too far for animated entertainment. A few areas chose not to show it at all, while some theaters limited screenings or placed strong age warnings. Even newspapers debated whether an animated film should be allowed to explore themes usually reserved for live action. But the attention only made the film more talked about. Young adults crowded theaters to see what the debate was about. College campuses hosted late-night showings where discussions stretched long after the credits rolled. The film tapped into the creative energy of the early 1970s, appealing to viewers who wanted animation to break free from its usual limits. Number 8. The 9 Lives of Fritz the Cat, 1974. When The 9 Lives of Fritz the Cat arrived in 1974, audiences expected a simple follow-up to the original film. Instead, they got something even more unpredictable. The sequel broke the story into separate segments, dropping Fritz into different settings and reshaping his world again and again. One moment, he was in a dreamlike future. The next, he was facing a version of events that twisted real-world ideas into cartoon form. It felt like flipping through a book where every page belonged to a different artist. Review boards were divided. In the United Kingdom, the film was refused approval, which meant it could not be shown in theaters. In parts of Europe, older viewers objected to its tone and unusual structure. Even in the United States, some theaters avoided certain segments, calling them too strange or too bold. The irregular flow made it harder to market, and the unusual humor left many unsure of how to react. But fans of experimental animation appreciated the risk. Each chapter gave animators freedom to explore new styles, odd ideas, and playful commentary. It was messy at times, but it carried a creative spirit that reflected the decade perfectly. College campuses embraced it as an underground favorite, often showing it alongside discussions about art and storytelling. Number 7. Fantastic Animation Festival, 1977. The Fantastic Animation Festival of 1977 did not follow a single story. Instead, it gathered animated shorts from many artists, each with its own wild ideas and eye-catching style. Viewers jumped from clay figures to colorful drawings, from silly scenes to abstract movement. The collection felt like opening a treasure box full of surprises. Some shorts were funny, some were strange. Others carried hints of commentary that viewers did not expect from cartoons. Because of this variety, a few television networks hesitated to air the full program. Some stations trimmed segments they felt were too intense for younger audiences. Others moved it to very late hours, hoping to avoid complaints. Even with these adjustments, certain communities believed it went too far and asked theaters to reconsider screenings. The issue was not that the collection was dangerous. The debate centered around how unpredictable it felt. Yet the festival became an instant favorite among young animation fans. Students and artists loved the creative freedom on display. It showed that animation did not need to follow one rule or match one style. The shorts celebrated imagination in every form. Claymation danced beside pencil sketches, and paper cutouts moved beside bold ink designs. Number 6. Tarzoon, Shame of the Jungle, 1975. Tarzoon, Shame of the Jungle arrived in 1975 with a playful tone and a daring spirit. It reimagined familiar jungle characters with exaggerated humor and wild animation. Instead of following a predictable adventure, the film used parody and unexpected twists to poke fun at the classic hero story. The characters moved through a world filled with odd designs and surprising moments, all presented in a bright, energetic style. Not everyone appreciated that humor. In the United Kingdom, the film faced strong pushback from review boards, which rejected it for general release. In some parts of the United States, theater chains chose not to show it at all, worried that its tone would confuse or upset families expecting a traditional jungle tale. Even the title stirred debate, since it hinted at a comic take on a well-known story. But fans of bold animation loved its courage. The designs were expressive, the jokes were lively, and the energy never slowed down. It reflected the creative boom of the 1970s, when artists pushed boundaries and experimented with new approaches to comedy. Students and animation clubs shared it as a curious treasure that blended parody with playful creativity. Number 5. Rings Around the World, 1966. Rings Around the World, released in 1966, was one of the earliest animated projects to blend humor, commentary, and bold visuals into a playful package. The film presented a series of animated sketches inspired by global landmarks and world events, delivered with a light but cheeky tone. Each segment used a different art style, making the film feel like a lively tour through the creative minds of its animators. However, the very things that made it interesting also raised concerns for certain broadcasters. When networks reviewed the film for television airings, some trimmed scenes they deemed too direct, while others chose not to show it at all. The animated jokes touched on real-world topics in a way that felt bold for the 1960s. A few local stations received letters from viewers who felt the humor stepped beyond the safe zone for family programming. Despite that pushback, Rings Around the World captured the attention of animation fans who appreciated its risk-taking spirit. The creative team used expressive lines, vibrant colors, and quick comedic beats to make each sketch feel unique. The film moved with a rhythm that kept viewers guessing what would appear next. Over time, it became known more for its creativity than its controversy. Number 4. The Magic Bird, 1977. The Magic Bird from 1977 was an animated film that blended folklore, symbolism, and imaginative landscapes into a story that felt larger than life. It followed a young hero on a journey shaped by wonder, mystery, and old legends. The art style mixed traditional hand-drawn animation with expressive color work, making each scene look like a painting brought into motion. For many viewers, it was a refreshing shift from the standard patterns of mainstream animation, but the film arrived during a very cautious political period. In several regions across Eastern Europe, local committees believed the story's themes mirrored certain real-world tensions. Even though the film never directly addressed those issues, some authorities viewed its metaphors as too pointed. A few cities postponed screenings. Some schools were advised not to show it. And in certain areas, the film disappeared from public schedules entirely. These restrictions gave The Magic Bird an unexpected aura. Viewers who managed to watch it praised its brave storytelling, gentle emotional core, and creative world-building. Animators admired how it used classic illustration techniques to deliver scenes filled with movement and heart. Students who found rare copies treated it like a treasured discovery. What could have been a widely celebrated animated tale instead became a whispered recommendation passed from fan to fan. Number 3. The Humpbacked Horse, 1975. The Humpbacked Horse had already been a beloved animated story when it first appeared decades earlier. But when a new edition surfaced in 1975, it faced a very different climate. This re-release arrived during a time when certain countries viewed foreign animated films with extra caution. Even stories that were gentle and magical could raise questions if they carried themes that someone believed hinted at deeper meanings. The new edition featured improved artwork and smoother animation. Its tale of friendship, bravery, and kindness made it a charming experience for young audiences. The colorful characters and imaginative landscapes created a sense of adventure that appealed to families everywhere. Yet in some areas, officials were wary. They wondered if the updated version carried subtle commentary that did not belong in children's programming. As a result, a few screenings were postponed, while certain broadcasts limited the movie to specific hours. In some regions, schools avoided showing it due to concerns about interpretation. These decisions were not about the content being harsh. Instead, They were influenced by the cautious atmosphere of the era. Despite the hesitations, the film continued to gain admirers. Viewers celebrated its heartwarming story and beautiful animation style. Families who watched it passed down their enthusiasm through generations. Animation fans later revisited the 1975 edition and praised its artistic improvements. Number 2. Dirty Duck, 1974. Dirty Duck from 1974 was one of the boldest animated projects of its time. It followed an ordinary office worker thrown into a whirlwind of strange characters, unpredictable scenes, and wild humor. The animation style was loose and expressive, reflecting the underground comic influences of the decade. Instead of polished lines and tidy storytelling, the film embraced raw creativity that felt like it belonged on the edges of mainstream entertainment. Many theaters did not know what to do with it. Some booked screenings but canceled them after early reactions. A few cities chose not to show it at all, believing the tone was too intense or too unusual for general audiences. Even reviewers were split. Some called it chaotic. Others admired its fearless approach and clever moments of satire. Despite the limited release, the film sparked curiosity. College campuses hosted private showings where viewers gathered to experience its unpredictable energy. Inside art circles, Dirty Duck became known for its unapologetic creativity and its refusal to follow the rules of typical animation. Its rough visual style made it stand out, giving it an identity that was impossible to mistake. For a long time, the movie was difficult to track down. Fans searched for rare copies, treating them like hidden treasures. Today, Dirty Duck is remembered as a piece of animation history that captured the spirit of fearless storytelling. The early restrictions only added to its legend, turning it from an overlooked oddity into an underground classic cherished by those who love offbeat animation. Number 1. Eat the Rich, late 1970s. Eat the Rich was never a traditional animated film. Instead, it was a collection of short, independent animations created by underground artists during the late 1970s. These shorts were screened at small festivals, community gatherings, and late-night events where creativity thrived without the oversight of large studios. The animation was rough on purpose, lines wobbled, colors clashed, and movement was intentionally uneven. But the charm came from its honesty. It captured pure imagination without worrying about polish. The shorts used humor, exaggeration, and surreal moments to explore everyday frustrations. Because they were made independently, the creators had full control, which led to scenes that felt bold for their time. A few community groups objected, calling certain ideas too sharp or too strange. In several small towns, local boards discouraged screenings. At some events, reels were quietly set aside to avoid complaints. Over the years, pieces from Eat the Rich resurfaced through restorations and digital uploads. The anthology now stands as a vibrant snapshot of independent animation during a period of cultural change. The early resistance only proved how ahead of its time it was. The film remains a reminder that creativity can thrive even when it faces obstacles. And there you have it. 14 animated films from the 1960s and 1970s that refused to play it safe and paid the price with quiet bands, trimmed scenes, and limited releases. Yet today, those same films are celebrated for their courage, imagination, and willingness to break patterns. Which one surprised you the most? Tell me in the comments, share the video, and subscribe for more deep dives into forgotten animation history. The next discovery might be even stranger.